What do they do? As a preliminary matter, this is Brian Sullivan, the chair of the Affordable Housing Trust. For me, confirm all members and persons anticipated on the agenda are present. Can hear me. Members, when I call your name, please respond in the affirmative. Penny Dye.
Here.
Brooke Moore.
Here.
Meg Browers.
Here.
Thank you. Staff, when I call your name, please respond in the affirmative. Haley Cook.
Present.
Tucker Holland.
Here.
Grant.
Here.
Anticipated speakers on the agenda, please respond in the affirmative. Brian Turbot
Present.
and Libby Gibson.
Present.
Good afternoon. This is an open meeting of the Affordable Housing Trust being conducted remotely pursuant to Chapter 20 of the Acts of 2021. Ensuring public access does not ensure public participation unless such participation is required by law. This meeting will feature public comment. For this meeting, the Affordable Housing Trust is convening via video conference via the Zoom app as posted on the town website, identifying how the public may join. Note the meeting is being recorded and that all attendees are participating via video conference. Accordingly, please be aware that other folks may be able to see you, and take care not to screen share your computer or anything that may broadcast captured by the recording. All supporting materials that have been provided to members of this body are available on the town's website unless otherwise noted. The public is encouraged to follow along using the posted agenda unless otherwise noted. We'll turn to the first item on the agenda. Before we do so, please permit me to cover ground rules reflected in clear communication. To conduct our business, the chair will introduce each speaker on the agenda. After they conclude their remarks, the chair will go down the line of members, inviting each to provide any comment, questions, or motions. Please hold until your name is called. Remember to mute your phone or your computer when you're not speaking. Please remember to speak clearly in a way that helps generate accurate meeting minutes. For any response, please wait until the chair yields the floor to you and state your name before speaking. If members wish to engage in a conversation with other members, please do through the chair, taking care to identify yourself. After members have spoken, the chair will forward the public comment to those members of the public that have joined the meeting via Zoom. Members of the public who wish to speak must state their names and be acknowledged and by and speak through the chair. Finally, each vote will be conducted via roll call. Okay, with that, we will go to the agenda. So the first, I'll call the meeting to order, and the next item on the agenda is approval of the agenda. At this moment, I think I'd like to talk about item 10, the RFP and review for Orange Street quickly, because I think we may need to amend the agenda. The RFP was delivered to my inbox last night, I think at 6:30 p.m. I was unable to read it through. I don't know that we've been able to post it for the public to review and comment before we vote on it. I'd like to look for a motion to move that to a future meeting date. Brooke?
Mr. Chair, I suggest we move all three RFPs to a future date, and I believe Tucker sent out a request for next week as an option. So I suggest all three get moved to that special meeting.
Okay, so that's a suggestion or a motion, Tucker?
It's a motion.
Just to add, we may send a subsequent note on trying to find a date for next week because the proposed date did not work for everyone.
Okay. Penny, you had a comment?
No, I'll second the motion, but I also wanted to encourage us as a group to meet as quickly as possible about this.
Agreed. Haley, I know that right now you have the Orange Street RFP. I don't see town council on the meeting, but Tucker, is there an expectation of when the others will be delivered so we can post that in a packet for the public if they want to make comment?
Yeah, the Amelia Drive was in the packet. We just got the Orange Street, as you noted, Mr. Chair, late yesterday, and town council indicated that Bartlett Road would be available later today, let's just say by tomorrow. So we would have it well in advance for a thorough review, and obviously posting and sharing with both the town manager and the finance director to get their comments as well.
Okay, great. The finance director has a question, Mr. Turbot, or a comment.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. I was just going to note that the procurement office hasn't seen these, so we have not reviewed them or done anything in terms of the posting requirements and the advertisement deadlines to be included in there, or any of that. And we typically do not post RFPs for public input before we post them. So okay. I'm not sure that, I don't think that that's a necessary step. Internally, if you've had town council working with you, then we could do the final review send it back to you and do that. We've never posted them for people to opt, especially because somebody might actually bid on it. And we would not want to have taken comments that may be preferential to an individual bidder's site that they'd like to propose on.
That's very helpful. Thank you. Okay, great. Brooke?
So Brian, does that mean we should discuss these in executive session?
I think you can discuss, no, because their distribution of land, their disposition of real property through either a lease or a sale, so they're all public session, but we don't typically invite the public to make suggestions on what we're trying to accomplish. That's all I was suggesting.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, so there's a motion to move item 10, 11, and 12 on the agenda from Brooke, and it was seconded by Penny to a future meeting date that'll be circulated. Is there any more conversation? Seeing none, I'll look for a vote by roll call. Penny Dye,
Aye.
Brooke Moore,
Aye.
Rima Sherry,
Aye.
Dave Iverson,
Aye.
Meg Bowers,
Aye.
Chantal Murphy.
Aye.
Great. Haley, note that Rima, Dave, Meg, and Chantal were joining the meeting. Okay, great. Thank you with that. So with that, I'll look for approval of the agenda as otherwise written.
So moved.
Moved by Penny, seconded by
Second.
Dave, by roll call. Penny Dye,
Aye.
Brooke Moore,
Aye.
Rima Sherry,
Aye.
Dave Iverson.
Aye.
Meg Bowers,
Aye.
Chantal Murphy,
Aye.
and Brian Sullivan's an aye. Item 3, I'm gonna lean on Haley to identify who was at which meetings for the approval
no.
of the minutes.
Jerry Keneally.
Yeah.
No one's in the waiting room. Are they trying to get into the meeting?
Haley, can you mute?
Are they having issues? Yeah, there's a number on the meeting ID that looks, oh, I'm sorry.
Thank you. So I'm looking to take the approval of the minutes, but I don't believe we had full attendance, so I just want Haley to identify who was at which meeting. Rima,
I was at all of them, so I think I can safely move to approve the minutes of 11/15/22, 12/20/22, 12/29/22, and 1/11/23.
okay,
And I
Um,
can second that.
okay, so I have a motion to approve all the minutes with a
Okay.
second. Haley, did you want to move or hold the minutes from January 11th?
Yes, thank you. If we could, I have to add who was there and make an edit on it. So if we could just move that one, that would be great.
Rima, can I offer a friendly amendment to your motion to remove January 11th, 2023? Okay, thank you. Any further discussion? Seeing none, I'll look for a vote to approve 11/15, 11/20, and 11/29. Penny Dye,
Aye.
Brooke Moore,
Aye.
Rima Sherry,
Aye.
Dave Iverson,
Aye.
Meg Bowers,
Aye.
Chantal Murphy.
I was not at 11:29.
Okay, so I guess you can abstain because we have a majority at the moment. And Brian Sullivan, I attended them all, so I will say aye. Okay. Public comment. Are there any members of the public? I see Mr. Keneally just connected. Are there any members of the public that would like to have public comment? Seeing none, I'll close public comment. I'll move to item 5. We have a presentation from Mr. Turbot, the finance director, and the town manager, Libby Gibson. I'll open the floor to you two to take as you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you to the members of the Affordable Housing Trust for the opportunity to discuss a concept that town administration has put forward and will be on the warrant and the ballot. Originally, I'll just let you know, I think that Brooke Moore had discussed this very preliminarily with you, a proposal for a $5 million override, which would provide a very stable platform from the tax base of funding revenue for Affordable Housing Trust as we continue to work through the myriad of issues with affordable housing on the island. Subsequently, as we all know, there was a citizens petition to dedicate 67% of the room occupancy tax into a stabilization fund dedicated to affordable housing. There was a very good discussion with the FinCom last week. I won't go into every detail of that discussion or what was presented, but I can say, I think the Affordable Housing Trust is probably very well aware of town administration's position on the citizen petition. We think that while it has continued to rise since the inception or the expansion of the tax to include short-term rentals, we still feel that given the uncertainty on a year-over-year basis of what that funding would look like, we think it's an unstable platform to try to get at the goals of affordable housing. Not to mention that we wouldn't know on an annual basis until almost April of the next town meeting what the funding would be available. And with the trust need to have what I would say is some type of stability in being able to pursue long-term goals, we don't believe really that funding will 100% meet all of those objectives in terms of being able to borrow with any certainty or any certainty to be able to meet any of the debt service obligations. So originally, town administration, we had proposed a $5 million override. Subsequent to the finance committee meeting, the town manager and I had a very brief discussion, and this is still, I think the structure or the framework is there, but some of the other minor details may still have to be ironed out within town administration, but the concept would be such, because we did hear that approximately $8 million is the number roughly that based on the room occupancy tax, where everybody thinks that they would like to be or thinks that that's the number. So the proposal would be that the town administration would recommend to the select board for inclusion on the warrant and the ballot an override question of $6.5 million, which would be the level, stable platform from which you could do numerous objectives, excuse me. And as an aside, I could just let you know that on a 20-year funding schedule with a $3.5 million debt service commitment annually, you'd be able to borrow almost $50 million. I haven't rerun it at a higher level than that, but that to me would be a significant step in the direction of helping attain all of the laudable goals. What we would propose is that on an annual basis, we would review the room occupancy tax after the June 30th payment and attempt to get to the 67% that was outlined in the Citizens article by filling the remainder of that from general fund revenues. As most people are aware, in the general fund itself, money is fungible. Every dollar doesn't really matter how we spend it, where it comes from. So if 8.5 was the number, say at the end of fiscal 24, then for fiscal 25, we would fill the override, excuse me, was successful. We would fill the remaining money from general fund operational revenues. If it was 8.5, we would fill it with $2 million. It's important to note that the override would grow at 2.5% annually. So it would not be restricted and flat at $6.5 million. Once the override became permanent, it would grow just like every other dollar in the tax levy does at 2.5%. I know that there was some concern about the fact that admittedly after the first year is the only year it's absolutely guaranteed for housing. However, the town has other overrides that are currently in the budget and have been for a long period of time that are always been funded with the dollars first before we determine what we can do with the rest of the budget. As an example, there's a $185,000 override that was done for mosquito control. It was recently a $5 million override for our island home. And there was a previous override many, many years ago for solid waste that every year when we build the budget, the first thing we do is take all of those overrides out of any potential funding available to fund any of the day-to-day operations of the general fund. And that's a commitment that was made a long time ago for some of those, most recently with the $5 million override. And town administration during those discussions has always been clear that the override dollars that were committed by the town will always be removed first in calculation for what we can do or any initiatives we could do in the general fund budget itself. And that's a commitment that we would obviously make should this pass as well. It's not something that we would look to move this money somewhere else to use for something else. We're proposing this so that we can make a concerted effort to try to bring some certainty and more clarity to the Affordable Housing Trust on what the funding would look like, and hopefully help advance all of the initiatives that the trust currently has. And if Libby, the town manager, has anything to add, I certainly welcome it.
Thank you, Brian. I think that pretty well sums it up. And some of you were at the FinCom meeting the other day and some were not. And I just wanted to reiterate that it's mine and Brian's job and the select board's job to take in the big picture. And we know that housing is an extremely important part of our goals, strategic plan, and budget. But there are a lot of other things that also need to be funded, including town employee compensation. We are taking a serious look at what we pay our employees. We are finding that we need to be more competitive in order to retain them. Cost of living is an issue here. Solid waste is it has already started, but it's about to come down the line with some very big expenses. Same with stormwater, town employee housing, coastal resiliency, sustainability, water quality. There's just a lot of things out there that require money, and we can't do all of them without funding.
Thank you, Libby. Thank you, Brian. I'll open or look to members of the board for questions. Penny?
Yeah, hi, thank you for coming and explaining this. This money would be paid by the taxpayers, is that right?
Well, the override is paid by the tax base, but I think that the reality is that if, taxpayers get the source of revenue for them to pay their taxes from a variety of sources, and some people use short-term rentals to do it. So, and some of it would be paid from the general fund, and conceivably could be considered from short-term rentals, although I can't in a general fund specifically allocate $1 to a specific revenue source. So, I mean, we have
Right.
one pot of money to pay for everything.
Yeah, I understand. Just a follow-up question or comment, I guess, would be more appropriate. One of the elements of the citizen-sponsored article that appeals to me as an individual is that money is taken from, it's paid directly by our visitors and our guests. And I think in my mind, it's similar to the sort of to the mechanism that was used for the land bank when it was established in 1983 to actually harness the marketplace and use the marketplace that has caused things to be so expensive here to help achieve a community goal. In the case of the land bank, it was acquisition of open space, and in this case, it would be affordable and attainable housing. My last question right now would be: the $6.5 million would require an override. I mean, I'm sorry, a vote at the ballot.
Override requires successful town meeting and a ballot vote, but
Yeah.
I do think to the question, I think that the taxpayers in the community, through numerous debt exclusions for Affordable Housing Trust, have been very, very supportive, and I do believe in the initiative of creating affordable housing for the town.
I think that's been true so far. I think that has been true. That is accurate. If you I'm sorry, the last thing, if you referred to this as an unstable funding platform, would that not apply to us as well as the town?
I think that
the room occupancy tax.
Well, the room occupancy tax, I think, but in the general fund budget, the town has never consistently budgeted 100% of those revenues because of that uncertainty. We've been conservative and careful with budgeting them because the way that the DOR looks at that, if we budget for something and it doesn't come in, then I have a revenue deficit that has to be brought up filled by some other local receipt that is in the big long category of them. So we have always been somewhat conservative to hedge against that actually happening. And because if it happened in the middle of a budget year, it would mean potentially freezes, cuts, and numerous things. And I think one of the reasons that I discussed this with Libby, and one of the reasons that we're here, is because I think that it certainly would benefit all of us if we were on the same page going to town meeting on identifying a funding that was stable. Yet I think in this example does potentially take some from short-term rentals through the operating budget. So it achieves what I would argue are both goals, getting the Affordable Housing Trust to potentially a particular number, depending on the performance of short-term rentals, but also creates a stable platform to be able to launch more initiatives through a borrowing authorization with a funding source that you don't have to worry about on an annual basis.
Thank you.
Thank you, Penny. Thank you, Brian. Are there other members of the board? Brooke? Jerry, I see you and I'll come to you after we go through the board. Go ahead, Brooke.
The other piece of this is timeline. As proposed in the citizen warrant article, the first year this money would be collected, Brian, is the following fiscal year, not the one we're voting on. And then it's another year before it gets voted out at town meeting for us to use. So we're talking about a 2-year delay in getting the first dollar from the citizen warrant article and from that short-term rental, and have to go back every year and get a 2/3 vote to pull the money out. So we've talked about this before, and it's a lot less, it's a lot less flexible funding than an override would be.
Brooke, if I may, I'd love to, if we focus the conversation not about the STR article that's a private citizen, and we stay focused on the questions related to this one, so we don't confuse either members of the board on which one we're kind of talking about.
Okay, it's just hard not to compare them in terms of.
Understood, but understood. Good, Penny. Same to you, Penny, because you seem to be talking more about STR.
It's impossible in my mind, to have a thorough and complete conversation without comparing them. I mean, Brian is saying 6.5. It had this been in place last year, it would have been 8.3, almost 8.4 million.
So I guess my point is, as a private citizen, you could support the citizens article in one way, and then as a board member here, we could support both or the other one. But so I have a handful of questions for you, Brian, related to this proposal that I'd love to clear through. Currently, the Affordable Housing Trust, I believe, receives $2 million in annual funding. How will that continue in addition to this 6.5 plus whatever the number is to get us to the 67, or is that incorporated into this? So is it a 6.5 net gain or a?
Well, so if you remember, portion of it is in the general fund operating budget already right now. And I don't think the town manager and I have had discussions about removing that or anything of that nature. I think that's probably slightly something we would have to talk about. But if you remember, the additional money of $1,625,000 originally was used as a springboard to authorize various additional debt. And it's always been that debt was going to be, as debt came on, that $1,625,000 was reduced to cover that debt service. So as an example, there were a couple projects that we did that, because they were 100% complete, we permanently borrowed the money to lock in a better interest rate than waiting a year or two or whatever, and paying really high short-term interest. And that money, it's about, I think, just under 500,000 was removed from what will ultimately be the Article 10 recommendation, because the commitment in the discussion when we came forward with the $2 million proposal before was, as we advance borrowing objectives and we permanently borrowed money, that $1,625,000 would be reduced by that debt service so that we weren't increasing the cost right in there. So eventually that $2 million is already going to be absorbed into debt service and not added in. It won't become additive to anything, because it's being subtracted from as we progress through those borrowing articles that were tied to that $1,625,000 over the last 2 years. So we're not going to I don't envision reducing it, because that money's already started to be built into the budget anyway, and will ultimately all be consumed within debt service.
Okay. So if sorry, it's just incredibly complicated and I can be a little thick on it. So if the override were not to pass, that 1.6 million is already accounted for in debt service. So we continue to use that. So that's off the table. Yeah. That's already accounted for. And then if the 6.5 weren't to pass, there's an existing budget item for staffing in the office. So operationally, will still
Yes.
operate.
Operationally, we would still operate the same as you are now. That's not
Okay.
tied to the 6.5 million debt exclusion or anything. It's already in the budget and consistently being funded that way.
My next question is, you very astutely heard the conversation at the FinCom meeting, which was about a different article, the citizens article, and the number that kept coming up was about $8.5 million. And so here today, we're talking about 6.5 with a makeup to get us to about 8. Is there propensity for us to come to and ask for 10? Like, what is the community's boundary for this override in a question? Are we at 6.5? Or is there more? And with that, my follow-up question is, what other budget overrides are going to be on the ballot for this year? Are we seeing sewer infrastructure? Are there road
Sure.
improvements?
No.
Are we seeing anything about Sconset? Like,
That's a
is there
great- that's a
100 million stuff and we're gonna get looped in and everything's gonna get voted down, or is there only us?
That's a great question. So the first part of that question is, I kind of took the proposal and the framework of this proposal to the town manager based on roughly the $8.5 million discussion, okay? Was there a solution that would get us there that I think married the two distinct opinions of various people on various sides of the issue, right? And trying to understand in my discussions with Tucker on roughly where the needs are. I will tell you candidly, there is an override for solid waste, but we've talked to that. We've been telling the select board since last year that we were going to have to do that. It was just, there was no way around it, given the rising cost and potential, the continued rising cost of the operations. And the continued pressure that puts on the levy limit itself. So there is that, and let me correct me if I'm wrong, but I think there are 4 debt exclusion questions for various capital articles, but this would be separate. Mr. Chairman, this would not be lumped in with all of those. It would be its own separate standalone article that the town would, at town meeting, would vote on, hopefully in the pot of called articles, and then a ballot question separate. So it wouldn't be an all or nothing for all of these at once. They're all individual articles for the capital projects, and the solid waste will be in the enterprise fund. The solid waste would be in the enterprise fund piece itself in the motion for the enterprise fund articles. So this is not grouped together in one giant package. It's an individual article that would be voted on.
And one more clarification for me, is this one that needs 2/3 at town meeting or just a majority?
Well, if we do not have a borrowing attached to this in the first year, it would only need a majority and then a majority plus 1 at the ballot.
Okay, great.
So I don't think I actually answered the first question is, I went with 6.5. Certainly if the trust felt that the number needed to be larger, but I don't know if I want to use this as a feeling out process. We went with a number that I felt like everybody thought, based on the discussions that we've heard, is roughly the number. And how do we get to that point and maybe get buy-in from everybody so that we're more unified and at town meetings so we can all move forward collectively.
Understood.
Not to say they may not approve more, but that's kind of where I landed or how I get there.
This is the first time we're here, Brian, so I don't know that we've collectively thought about it either. And the other number was actually made up for us, right? It was an easy number to point to because there it was. So I'm just challenging the boundary of conversation by bringing it up. Dave, you had your hand up, and then I'll come to Rima.
I'm good, Brian. I think that part of my question was answered, so I'm good. I'll let Rima go.
Okay, great. Thanks. Rima, you're up.
Yeah, just to clarify, because I was a little distracted, this is a one and done override ballot question. It goes on once and that's it. Okay.
It goes on once and it's in perpetuity.
Thank you.
And Mr. Chair, I think one thing that I neglected to explain, one of the rationales for doing this is that, as we all know, that there's also, I'm not going to go into them, but there's also additional articles for restrictions on short-term rentals. There's a work group that may be proposing various articles, and given the fact that we don't know what they may look like, we will never be able to accurately today model those impacts, which is another reason why we propose the $6.5 million. The override is the most stable portion of the funding.
Okay, great. Thank you, Brian. Penny, come
Yeah,
back
just
to you.
one more question through you, Mr. Chair, to Brian and Libby. what would happen if both articles passed?
Well, we would have, I don't know what would happen. It would be, we'd have a year to sort it out, I suppose. I think the hope is that if this gets the group to where the number is that they feel that they need to operate, that there would be collective support from the trust that we could move forward in a unified measure. Because what I heard from FinCom, without talking about all of it, is there a middle ground that really solves the problem without having to get into this to do all
Thank
of
you.
it?
Tucker?
Thanks, Brian. Brian, I don't know if you've had a Brian Turbot, I don't know if you had a chance, but do we know what the tax bill impact would be for both like the average taxpayer and then someone who gets a residential exemption?
We will actually, once we settle on the number, which I think is 6.5 million, we'll have that and we'll put it on the website like we do with all the other ones. But as an example, 2 years ago, we estimated the impact at 25 cents for the $5 million, over 25 cents per thousand for the OAH override. Right now, with rising assessed values in properties, I think the impact on a tax rate would push it down a little bit, but obviously bills would go up a little bit. But it will, if we settle on 6.5 for this, then we will put that in the analysis and we'll model it and disclose it and put it out to everyone. But we have not done it exactly at this point.
Okay, thank you.
So I'd like to, based on that question, I'd like to invoke Mr. Dickler for a second. Is there any conversation about potentially raising the residential exemption in a way that, or on a individual permanent override like this, that the burden could go somewhere else? Or is that a collective entire tax-based question that we would then need to do?
Well, the exemption is voted annually by the board, and if you're talking about the residential exemption, and we do have the statutory authority to go to 35%. However, I think this year they voted, given the fact that assessed values in the town increased by almost 25%, and there was a very substantial reduction in the actual rate, not the tax bills, because we're still fielding calls from people trying to get a handle on what was going on. They didn't go to 35%, partially because I think they were of the understanding and mindset that once we get there, we can't turn it back. And there's a large number of projects potentially moving down the road that they would like to have a little bit of flexibility to move forward and mitigate some of those impacts as they come upon us.
Understood. Thank you, Brian. Brooke?
Yeah, I can confirm that that's the conversation that happened at the select board level, that leaving some powder dry for uncertainty or significant increases in other demands on the tax base in the future, to have that tool in our toolbox.
Thank you, Brooke. Are there other questions from the board before I open to Mr. Keneally? Seeing none immediately, Jerry, you're up.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. First of all, I just want to thank the trust, the CPC, the town select board for everything you've done for us. You know, reminder, we're servicing the 80% of AMI on the island. And thanks to your support, and the flexibility of your support, we've been able to build 2 homes in 2021, and we're just completing 3 homes this year. And we're going to be coming to the, we've already met with the trust, but we're going to be coming back to trust and meeting the town planner today. And we're going to be coming back to the select board with some designs for 6 homes over 3 lots on Waite Drive. But most importantly, listening to this conversation with Brian Turbot, the material funding source is extremely important to our mission. And you guys have been very supportive, and what you've done over the last few years by getting the money to the flexibility of getting the money to the trust versus waiting for once a year funding from the CPC has made it, you know, when our bills come, we're able to pay them. It's not like it's once a year that it comes to us. The flexibility that you offer is extremely important to us, and it's worked extremely well. We're going to be coming, if we do these 6 homes, you know, we're going to be coming with $1.5 million a year request for the next 2 years. So it's substantial, but we'll be able to get 6 homes in. So, you know, thank you for the conversations you're having. hopefully the flexibility gets voted through, and what Brian is suggesting to me sounds like a great option. That's up to you. But thank you for all the work you're doing, and we appreciate it.
Thank you, Jerry. And just to identify, I don't know if I heard it, Jerry, when you reference we, you mean Habitat for Humanity, correct?
That's correct. Excuse me. Yeah, I'm
Thank you.
president. as
Yeah, just for
president
the record, in case anybody's curious.
Yes.
Okay, any other board members with conversational or question? Go ahead, Penny.
Yeah, just on my last question, I promise. Through you, Mr. Chair, to Brian and Libby. And I apologize, but I cannot talk about one without talking about the other. As the citizen who proposed the citizens article, is he aware of the 6.5 versus the 5 million?
We have not gone, I personally have not reached out to the individual who submitted it. I don't imagine the town manager has. I think that our first thought was to come and talk to the Affordable Housing Trust about it, and move from there, based on the how we felt the conversation went, but we have not talked to him, no.
Okay, thank you. And then in the past, Mr. Chair, we've not taken a public position on articles. Is that right?
We definitely have not taken any position on citizen articles in the past. I don't know that we've taken on any other positions. I don't know that anything has crossed us.
Maybe through you to Vicky, is there anything to preclude us from taking a position?
Vicky, did you catch that? The question is there anything to preclude us as a board from taking a position on either citizen or town sponsored articles?
I'd have to go and look. I don't think so, but I'd want to look at the trust to make sure that there aren't any prohibitions that are written in there. So before I would comment, I'd like to take a look at the issue further, and I can let you know.
Thank you. That's it for me.
Okay. Brooke?
So I wear a new hat since we were at this rodeo last year. And I think I would just like to share my perspective now as your select board representative, that town finances are a complicated web. And I know myself that it's hard from the Affordable Housing Trust seat alone. And a lot of folks are involved and paying attention and so forth. And I just wanted to share that I've come to rely on the finance director and the town manager a lot in terms of how we as an entire community manage our revenue risk and potential in terms of funding the entire operation of this municipality. And I just want to encourage the board to consider the expertise of the finance director and the town manager on advising us on the best way to go about this for the entire community and other attendant demands on revenue that are present and coming forward, but also acknowledge that there is risk politically to a ballot question. And that I think it's incumbent on this board to communicate the need for funding across the board and what our plans are and why we need this substantial, why we're asking the community to support a substantial long-term consistent funding stream. Regardless of where it comes from, what are we doing that justifies their supporting that? And that my hope would be that we would have a unified message going into town meeting. And that's just, so it's less confusing for the voters. And that's me speaking, just from where I sit with all my hats.
Thank you, Brooke. Any other members? Tucker?
I just was going to note, and I'll forward this around to the trust members and Vicky, but I think John Giorgio had weighed in on this topic about the ability for the trust to make recommendations, and he said that there is no legal prohibition against the trust from stating a recommendation on any article that comes before town meeting, as long as the recommendation was voted at a duly posted meeting of the trust. And he does go on to say that the trust would need to be careful for warrant articles that have a ballot question associated with them to not produce or mail any written material on behalf of that ballot question. But I'll forward this around.
That's super helpful. Thank you, Tucker.
Tucker, and I'm sorry to interrupt, but that is also relating to using town resources or publicly funded resources for that stuff. If you had a nonprofit do it, that would be okay.
Yep.
We may be coming back to you, Mr. Keneally. So I just want to come to bring us to a moment. This is an incredibly exciting spot that we're in, that we're having a conversation about an override for $6.5 million that was going to potentially bond us. Do I think that it's a solution number? No, I don't. I know our problem is way greater than that. Is this a step in the right direction? This is a way better conversation than when we went looking for $600,000, 5 years ago. So congratulations to everybody that's here to have this conversation and where we've got to. I would like to make the challenge statement. Is there a number that the community would support anywhere between $6.5 and $10 million? I was on the finance committee, meeting. Fortunately, I only wear one hat, and it's housing, so I don't need to wear all the hats that the select board and the town manager and finance department is. So I want to look for all funding opportunities and have a giant fire hose to attack this issue. But I am incredibly appreciative of where we stand today, that we're having this conversation about a permanent override. Penny, the only reason I said let's talk about them separately, because what if there's a situation that the community votes for both? I don't wish that puzzle onto you, Brian, but it'd be pretty incredible to have that much funding. So again, thank you for being here. I'm going to come back to Dave Iverson for, I guess, the closing statement. I don't know that we have an action item to take based on this conversation, but Dave?
No, I mean, I think I just, in speaking to whether there's an opportunity to ask for more, I think that, we all need to get on our horses and start spreading the word and getting the facts out there. Because I do think we have an uphill climb at town meeting. I think there's going to be a lot of very uncomfortable questions asked. I mean, not in a just people misunderstanding the process and wondering why there's not more heads in beds and what we're doing with this money. So and we've had this discussion before, but I think now more than ever, it's really important that we get the facts out there in a way that people can hear them and see them and understand what we're up against. Thanks.
Thank you, Dave. So I don't know. Okay, Penny, last one, and then we'll let Brian and Libby go. Go ahead.
So sorry, I want to continue this discussion. I don't want the end of this meeting or the end of this topic to be the end of this discussion.
I would agree. So we're not closing the agenda item. We'll keep it open. We'll roll it to the next meeting, whether finance and town manager come to the next meeting on it, or we just continue to talk about it. I think that becomes a question. Brooke?
So as a matter of process, we're going to be finalizing the warrant next week, right, Libby? And so, I mean, I don't know, for Brian and Libby, barring the sense that this board is not interested, this will be included on the warrant at 6.5 at this point?
That is going to be up to the select board, and you guys are probably going to have a discussion about that tomorrow night.
Okay.
But as Brooke said, the warrant needs to be adopted, if not tomorrow night, which is unlikely, next Wednesday. And we're going to need to know if we're putting on an article and a ballot question.
Okay, great. Go ahead, Brooke.
So I might ask whether this group endorses the community having the choice of both options.
So you're not looking for a vote, you're looking for a temperature.
Just, I mean, is there any reason not to do it? As a select board member, I would ask this group, is there any reason not to have it on the ballot from the perspective of the Affordable Housing Trust? I'd like to carry that to the select board tomorrow night, that information.
My personal opinion is it should absolutely be on the warrant. I just question whether it's 6.5, 8.5, or 10. So I just don't know what the propensity of the community is. Like, and it really depends on what the other items that are going to be on the ballot. I don't know that I have any concern about this conversation on the floor of town meeting, but it really becomes the conversation with each individual with themselves in the ballot box. So, but I absolutely think the community should have the opportunity to choose. Anybody else?
In agreement with you, Brian.
That was Dave. Rima, Penny, Shanta, Meg. Go ahead, Rima.
Well, the fact that this gives us, if passed, the ability to borrow, then we're in business, that's a lot of money, and debt service, we'll be able to do that. So I'm all for it. Thanks.
Thanks, Rima. I'll come to Chantal, then Penny, then Tucker.
I just wanted to share that I'm 100% in agreement with this. I think it's it puts us at a strategic advantage to be able to tackle. I think the community should have the opportunity to voice their opinion on it as well.
Thanks, Chantal. Penny?
My only concern about what Brian has outlined is the amount and the risk factor with the override. And what do we do if it doesn't pass? That's a big concern of mine.
It's hugely problematic. We'll basically be unfunded for a year. Tucker? You're on mute.
Well, to that last comment that you made, Mr. Chair. So, I mean, I believe that there is going to be a $10 million bonding authorization associated with the current Article 10 as part of this year's program. Am I saying that correctly, Brian Turbot?
I think that's still being worked on. I'm not sure that I recall the number, but yeah, that's
well, sort of
probably
similar
correct in Article 10, provided we haven't exhausted with all
right.
the other borrowings, the 1.6 million, yes.
Yeah, we started with the 1.6, and I think there've been 2 bonding authorizations associated with that pool over time. Of the authorizations are up to 6.5 and 10 each, and I think at least the original math interest rates may have changed this a bit, obviously, but was that there would be room for additional authorization of something on that order. So whether that's the exact number, there should be something that would allow a little more powder to work with if this other measure were not to pass. The point I was going to make before the chair had brought up that topic was that obviously more is more, when we're talking about a $500 million problem. However, the 6.5 to what Rima was saying, I mean, that's in round numbers, potentially $100 million, which is a significant amount of money to work with. And I think that if that were to be supported by the voters, that we could put that to very good use and demonstrate, if you will, the need for something above and beyond if that is deployed in a manner that the public sees and feels good about. So while we have to read the tea leaves on where people are at in terms of their support for this issue, I feel good about the finance director's recommendation.
Thank you, Tucker. And then I have one more board member, Meg.
I just wanted to chime in and voice my support as well, and hopefully we can get some talking points together that we can use to share with the community so that there is widespread public support.
Thank you, Meg. Brooke, did that give you what you needed to take to the select board meeting?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I will definitely be representing this board's thoughts in the discussion tomorrow.
Great. Thank you. Brian, Libby, thank you very much. I'm excited about where we're at.
Thank you, everybody, for the time. We appreciate it.
Thank you guys very much.
With that, we'll move to the CPAP CFAP program summary, item 6 on the agenda. Haley, I'm gonna kick to you.
Great, thank you. Just before we get started, a note, we have a person on the meeting, cell phone number ending in 3900. Could you possibly identify yourself? We need to put your name on the meeting. Gonna ask on
Is that actually, I think it's Tucker.
No. I believe it's Dave Arminetti.
I thought it was, but I just want to confirm that that's accurate. Does anyone know?
Yeah, hi there.
Oh, great.
There he
Chairman.
is. Okay.
Haley,
Okay,
it's me. I'm calling from my main office number. Sorry.
No problem. Thank you. Okay.
Thanks.
Yeah. Okay, so CCAP and CFAP summary. I'll keep this brief because I know we have a lot of agenda items today. But I was asked to put something together to kind of go over the efforts of these programs in the community. So if you look at page 28 of the packet, that's where you will see the 2 graphs that we put together here. The first one is the number of applications over the years. So you can see in 2017, there was a lot of applications at that point because of course there was a need, a lot of people ready to get that support. It does go down. Yes.
Haley, do you want to share your screen?
Oh,
on this?
sure. Yeah, I can do
Yeah,
that.
that'd be helpful.
Yeah, no problem. Okay, can people see these? Yes, okay. So yeah, you can see the first year in 2017, we have the boom of the applications here. It does go down. And then of course, in 2020 with the pandemic and the market and everything, it does go down here, but you can see it start going back up in 2021. And here's where we are now. So, you know, I'm not a scientist in data management and the market, but you can see an upward trend and hopefully that will continue. Brooke Brian, Brooke is raising her hand.
Yeah, just to clarify, Haley, because you're fairly new with us, these correlate to housing developments coming online.
These correlate to the number of closing cost assistance programs, loans that we've.
Yeah, but they do, the reason they move is like Sachem's Path was at a certain time and we're back.
Oh, sure.
And Piper is happening. So the number of applications correlate to the number of houses that become available. The turnover of houses is fairly slow, but increases are usually because more housing units are becoming available.
Yes, that makes sense. Thank you. And then you'll see, so yeah, that's the over the years for the CCAP program, closing cost assistance program. And I think to Brooke's point, additionally, I don't know what the marketing efforts have been over the year in terms of people's knowledge of these, and if that has had an upward trend as well. But that could be something that we also see in the future as additional housing opportunities also become available. And then in terms of the AMI levels we've served, so the total number of closing cost assistance program loans that the trust has given out would be for 82 households since 2017. And I can make this a little bit bigger, sorry, but you can see the breakdown of AMI levels here. So the largest groups that we're serving are the AMI levels in the 150 and the 80% cap levels. And then you'll see you can see TBD. That just indicates we're just doing some record keeping upkeep. Tucker and I are working on this because there has been some staff turnover and a lot of changes over the years. So we're just making sure that we confirm everything. The AMI levels that are not indicated would be in that bracket of 80% to the 175. So it wouldn't be anything outside of what we approve. But I just need to gather a little bit more data to confirm that. And I wanted to be truthful with my graph. So I just wanted everyone to see that. And that is it for those two programs. I will say for the CFAP, that one, because it is newer, there are about 9 to 10 households that we've served so far with the closing, with the Covenant Formation Assistance Program. And I'm happy to share more data about those, but I am doing some more gathering on that. But if anyone has any questions about this, I'd be happy to answer them.
Penny, I'll come to you.
Yeah, just quickly, is it possible at a future meeting for you to tell us of the 77 assistance grants or loans, how many have been paid back, and likewise for the CFAP?
Yeah, definitely. So we're still waiting on some of the promissory notes and mortgages to be executed and sent out. And then some people are still waiting to close that we have approved of that are closing, in the next few weeks or so. So I can give you that as those things close as well to have a full data point.
It would be helpful to know, because that money then becomes available for other people, sort of tracking the churn of it.
Sure.
Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I have a spreadsheet, so I can even, if you're interested, happy to send you an email now, but I'll give a more thorough report as well for everyone.
So that's a good talking point, Dave. That's a lot of households with heads and beds established there.
Oh, no, exactly. And that's part of the reason why I think I asked for the data to begin with. It's just to see it's actually creating something. It's helping people get into housing, and that's what we need to show. So thank you very much, Haley, and I look forward to seeing the rest of the stuff next week or next month.
Sure thing. And if anyone has any other questions or specifics, please just let me know.
Great. Thank you, Haley. So with that, we'll close 6 and open 7. Update on Violet Place acceleration. Dave, I'll open to you for this update. And Rima, I'm going to step away for just a second. If you need to move the meeting along, could you move it along for me? Be right back.
All right. Good afternoon, Mr. Chair, Madam Chair, board members, everybody. Nice to have a few minutes to give you an update here on our continuing efforts on Meadows 2. The Violet Place acceleration is the 48 unit component that is the next 2 phases of the project that I believe the board is fairly familiar with. It's 5 buildings, 48 total units, 24 of which will be AMI restricted. And this is the phases or the component that comprises the units that the town, through the trust and through the housing staff, was just able to submit and finalize processing through DHCD for the additional increment of short-term safe harbor, which I know you'll be talking about a little later. So this is the phase that encompasses that. We're moving along on both the construction end and the marketing end of both the market rate units, but to a greater extent, the AMI restricted units. So from a construction standpoint, the first of the 5 buildings, which is 47 Beachgrass Road, is completed. We got our certificate of occupancy about a week ago. Plus, in the building department helped to expedite that, which was great because we've got people literally waiting to move in the parking lot as usual. So people are moving in there, including the first couple of 80% AMI restricted units in that building, which were actually marketed in our outreach and lottery back in May. And construction on the second building is progressing. We took delivery, foundation there is complete. We took delivery of 9 more boxes last week, 9 more modules for that building. So that'll start going vertical shortly. So the 2 of the 5 buildings are progressing, and then we'll get a jump across Dave Kim Lane or Harvey Road further to the south towards Surfside in that back corner and get going on those next 3 buildings. The 3rd building is about to go online in Pennsylvania at our modular fabricator in the next couple of weeks. So we're just moving full speed ahead there. And from an outreach marketing standpoint, we're in the middle, just turning the halfway point on our outreach for the AMI restricted units there, which is a increment of 20 units. It's a combination of AMI tranches from 70% up to 120% that the board's familiar with. We have, I think, the last time I checked in with SEB, our consultant, about 25 applications for those 20 units already, and there's still 3 weeks left in the application process, and we tend to get quite a few in the last week. So I would expect we'll be similarly oversubscribed there from an application standpoint as we've been all along. So the word is out. People are moving forward, filing applications, and that lottery will be, applications are due February 6th for that cycle. That lottery will be February 15th. So full speed ahead there. And as always, but significantly, we appreciate all the support of your board and all the hard work of the staff and town council. There was a lot of heavy lifting towards the end of the year to get everything processed through DHCD, and particularly Tucker, Ken, and Attorney Marsh had to do quite a bit of heavy lifting to get all that done to meet the deadline with DHCD. So kudos to everybody involved, and the continuing mantra, as Mr. Iverson mentioned, is keep putting heads in bed. So we'll keep doing our best, and we appreciate your support.
Thank you very much, Dave. Any board members have questions for Dave? Seeing them, Tucker, I see your hand up.
I mean, I just wanted to, thank Dave and Andrew and Phil and the team at Richmond. I mean, they worked very hard to meet not only the DHCD deadlines, but to Dave Iverson's point earlier, we're already talking about the first 8 units within this phase being occupied, which is really, they're moving very quickly. We saw that with the wildflower acceleration that went very smoothly, and we're pleased to be able to be doing this. Sorry about my grammar there. Continued work together. This has been a good collaboration, and we appreciate everything that Dave and the team there are doing. Thank you.
Thanks, Tucker. Thank you, Dave. I don't see any other members with questions. Thanks for keeping it moving.
Sure.
With that,
keep
we'll let
pushing
you
us.
off. What's that?
I said keep pushing us.
Fair enough. With that,
Thanks.
we'll let you off the call and we'll move to the next item on the agenda for 31 Fairgrounds. And I think we have a kind of a 2-part conversation, maybe get a construction update from Billy and then understand the AMI breakdown and kind of rental rates from Ann. Make sense? Ann and Billy, are you? There you are, Billy. Billy.
So, we are back at full throttle. We are setting 2 buildings next week, buildings 4 and 5. We are putting everything that's transpired over the last, few months or whatever in the rear view and moving forward. And that's about that.
Anyone have any construction questions for Billy? Seeing none, thanks, Billy. And I think we have some review on how you're going to break out the AMIs and share with the group. You had that very helpful chart. Are you able to screen share that, or?
You want me to do that or Haley?
Or I'm not sure. Haley, does Ann have? There we go. While she looks for that, Ann, you want to start the commentary and then we'll get it put up?
Oh, sure. Well, I sent out basically a summary. Everybody wants to know how many bedrooms are in the Wiggles Way project. And so we have 2 3-bedroom units, which is part of that 10% requirement that DHCD has in order for the units to be on the SHI list. So 2 3-bedroom units, 12 2-bedroom units, and 8 1-bedroom units. And this was another thing that kind of came up because a lot of you probably know that we just administered a lottery for the Sandpiper Place development, and those are all 3-bedroom units. So there was a lot of disappointment from people who only needed 2 or 1-bedroom units, even though, you know, it's serving a different aspect of the market, much needed. With the 3 bedrooms, they wanted to know, where are the 2 and the 1 bedrooms? Well, they're here in the 31 Fairgrounds project. So we have 12 2-bedroom units and 8 1-bedroom units within this project. So how we came up with the rent is pretty standard. We use 80%, so like for the first one up there. So what you do is, like where it says unit 1, yeah, there you go. So in that case, it's a 3-bedroom unit. So we take the number of bedrooms plus 1 to get a household size. So that would be 4-person household. If you're trying to serve the 80% AMI bracket, then you use the 80% annual income for a 4-person household in our area, and then multiply it by 0.3, which is 30% of their income, divided by 12, and that's where we get our monthly rent. So that's an affordable rent for a 4-person household earning 80% AMI. And that works for the 80% AMIs, the 50% AMIs. But once you get into 150% AMI or 110% AMI, our policy at Housing Nantucket is not to charge more than fair market rent. And this is how a lot of our tenants who are in those like higher incomes are able to save money to enable them to buy a home with a down payment, and, you know, just kind of get out of the rental unit and then move on to home ownership. So we look at the fair market and we try to say, okay, well, if they can afford more, they're using that formula I outlaid, we're not going to charge them more. And number 2, who's to say that someone's going to pay that amount? We don't know. So we go back to the fair market rent and just charge. That's like the maximum that we would charge would be the fair market rent. And that's how we came up with this rent and rent mix. I don't know if you had any more specific questions, but in our model here, we're trying to serve the 50% AMI with 3 of the units, 8 of the units serve the 80% AMI, 5 of the units serve 110% AMI, and 6 of the units serve the 150% AMI. So that's how we broke this out. I know there were also questions about, like, how are we going to find our tenants who are going to be living in these units? And for the 50% and the 80% AMI, we have to do a lottery because that's a condition of the subsidized housing inventory. So we'll be marketing that once we get closer to the finish line here, which, by the way, the builder tells us is at the end of Q2. So in my, looking at the year, we're saying September, getting ourselves ready, and there's a lot of activity over there, so we want to be prepared for moving people in September. So then we'll be advertising for those units about, say, 2 months before we actually think people will be able to move in, 2 to 3 months before, and those will be the 80% and 50% AMI units. The 110 and the 150% AMI units, we'll choose those from our ready to rent list. And at this point, we have a lot of people on that list. I think there's 300 applications on there right now, over 300 actually. And so we just keep getting more people on that list. And then once we figure out, say we're trying to fill a 2-bedroom at the 110% AMI level from our ready to rent list, then we'll go to our ready to rent list. First, we look at who's looking for a 2-bedroom. Then we look at what their income is, and it narrows down the field quite a bit. And then once we see who that pool is, then we would start reaching out to them, see what their housing situation was, if they're looking for housing, if they're interested in this project. And then we just kind of use our own background checks to determine who we're going to offer the unit to first from there.
And quick question about your ready to rent list. How often is it refreshed? Like, does a person maintain existence on that over multiple years? Or do they need to re-identify to hold their position? Kind of like my mooring application.
Yeah, well, we send out something, we send an email to all the contacts and we ask them to just check in with us. So we keep note of that, but we also just keep people on that list. Even, we just make a note when they're responding to us, that's building a relationship so that when we are looking for a tenant for a 2-bedroom at the 110% AMI, I already know, I have a sense of this person, I'm interacting with them regularly. I know how responsive they are, but we do keep people who were on the list years ago on there, but then just kind of use that information.
They may be housed or they may have moved off island. It's hard to
Right.
tell. Right.
Yeah.
Okay. Penny, you had a question? Brooke, I see you.
Yeah, I have 3 questions, Anne. Is there going to be any kind of local preference when you're choosing the people for these units, and also specifically town employees, any preferential treatment?
Well, for the shy requirements, the shy listed units, so 25% of those units, you can only have 70% of those units can have a local preference. So, let me just do the math real quick. So 22 units times 0.25. So that means that 5.5. So let's say 6 of those units, and 70% of 6 is 4.2. So say 5 of those units could have a local preference. What we saw with this lottery that we just ran, it was all local applicants. That's where we're advertising. Those are the people who are applying for these units. So even though we had a local preference in that lottery, we didn't even need to do that at all because everybody was a local.
So town employees, the last 3 RFPs I reviewed had a whole paragraph in there about preferential for town employees, preferential consideration.
So for town employees, that's more kind of our own discretion. When we look at our ready to rent list, we're thinking about not only can they pay the rent, but what are the jobs that these people are doing. And just internally, we might give a preference for a DPW worker or an essential town personnel, something like that.
Okay, 2 other quick questions. I'll try and cram them all together. When you were using the example of a 3-bedroom unit, and you said housing 4 people, that's not a limitation of that bedroom capacity, is it?
No, the limitation would be the number of bedrooms times 2. So you can have 2 individuals in each bedroom. That's just how we figure out the formula on what is an affordable rent.
Income. Okay, and then lastly, and I don't know if you're ready to answer this or if this is for down the line, but you've got annualized rental income of 568,000 and change, and the operating expenses, and you said of 404,000, and you said that's an estimate based on FY22 actuals, based on the actuals of what, and why is this going to cost that much to operate?
Well, there's it's actuals for our own rental units. So basically,
which are scattered site.
That's true, but that's all the data we have.
Okay, but I just would posit that you're not going to have a lot of maintenance on this for the first 5 years, at least.
Well, we have to keep reserves so that we can address any maintenance issues. And I mean, I can share with you the expenses if you would like.
I think it would be helpful to see that down the line. I mean, you're not paying property taxes. You have maintenance and you have insurance and management and maybe some reserve funding.
Yeah, we have all sorts of things in here. We have payroll, legal fees, auditing fees, marketing for the units, office supplies.
Okay, we don't need to get into all that now, but at some point it would be helpful to see a breakdown. Yeah. Okay, that's it for me. Thank you.
Thanks, Penny. Brooke?
So for the public, would I be correct in saying if one has applied to Housing Nantucket in the past, it's worth checking in and updating your application, and that for anyone who has not yet applied, they should apply because these units are at different AMI levels. So there's different pools of people who will be eligible for each level, and having your so I mean, I've been out in the community just encouraging everyone to apply because those units above the 80% level will be allocated not by lottery, not randomly. And so people really do need to get their names on your ready to rent list and get their information to you in order to be eligible for consideration for this project. And I think making sure the community is aware of that and that folks need to go to your website and fill out the application.
That's right. And we also think we like grabbing the data also because it helps the community to know what the need is out there. And also it's good for us, like just today I had a call and I could look at what our ready to rent list was last year at this time and this year at this time to see the growth and then be able to speak to that too. So it's a good way to capture the need.
Any other questions on the
I have
project for
another.
Ann? Go ahead, Penny. Don't feel
So
bad.
sorry.
Let them rip.
Just through you to Anne, why did you say September occupancy if it's supposed to be, if it's targeted to finish the end of the second quarter?
Well, the end of the second quarter would be June.
30th.
Yep. I want to believe that it'll be ready in June. That's just where I think it's more like September myself, but I mean, we're ready to go on our end. If things are looking in March, like it's going to be ready at the end of June, then all we need to do is start advertising to collect applications.
And you need lead time of what, 8 to 12 weeks?
I believe it's a 6-week advertising is the affirmative fair housing marketing plan for this one. And then you need to give people enough time to give notice to their landlords also. So, you know, I just say 3 months.
So let's be fluid on all that, okay?
Yeah, it'd be nice to be ready to advertise May 1st. And then understand kind of where the project is and where the potential applicants are. Because, you know, 2 months to make 22 other units available for the summer when it's at its most expensive is an incredible opportunity for the community and the housing need. If we can get them full for July and August, because all those people are going to move out of somewhere that's going to be instantly occupied. Tucker.
I just was going to say that, I mean, sort of to, I think the point that Dave Arminetti made a moment ago, where they are filling two of their 80% units in this first building within Violet Place, those were actually folks who were selected like last spring. And so their selection is still valid for some time. So I don't see a downside to running the process and being ready for, let's say, May, and, you know, hopefully everything goes according to plan, but should there be a delay, we're not losing anything.
Absolutely. And part of the affirmative fair housing marketing plan that was approved by DHCD included an application. So that's all written. We have the plan. We just have to press go, you know, and start advertising, update the rents, that sort of thing. So there's nothing to preclude that from happening on our end.
Great. Awesome. Thank you, Ann. It was a nice thorough update today. I appreciate it.
Sure thing.
Any other last questions before we close this item? Seeing none, we'll close 31 Fairgrounds. We'll jump over to real quick the 2-year HPP certification to DHCD. Tucker, I'll let you run with this.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I mean, I think the board is aware at this point, but I think this is the first meeting we've had to inform the public that we recently received the 2-year certification of our housing production plan based largely on the progress that was talked about with Mr. Arminetti in the Violet Place acceleration, in addition to a couple of home ownership units that were created within the Sandpiper Place development at Richmond and the Nantucket property owner group there. So, you know, we're very appreciative of the work of both of those organizations to help get us to this point. Very appreciative of all the work that Vicky Marsh, town council, put in on helping us get to the finish line. And we would be remiss for sure if we did not, even though they're not present in absentia, thank the folks at DHCD. We've got a terrific team of people up there that we're fortunate to be able to work with and have access to, and they helped guide us in landing the plane right when we wanted to, and ensure a continued period of safe harbor until December 11th of 2024. So that is the update. I can add finally that our new SHI list, which if it isn't already on the trust website, we'll have up there, but we presently are at the 6.78% mark relative to the 10% requirement. So well done, everyone on the board, for getting us to this point. Thank you.
I feel like when I started, we were at like 2%. Oh, pretty exciting. Penny, I'll come to you and then to Brooke.
Okay, just quickly, Tucker, on the Academy Hill School, you've got this list of specific properties. And I understand only a certain percentage of those are designated affordable, but all the 27 units count. Do you know if there's any restriction on those for year-round occupancy? The non-affordable units?
Yeah, this question came up, Penny, and I'm circling back to Hall Keen, who manages that project, to get more details. Frankly, it's a project that I am not particularly involved with day to day. It sort of predated my involvement here, but I'm going to look into that a bit further and report back.
I think it would be helpful to find out, because I believe the intention.
Oh, I think Vicky has her hand up here.
Oh, good.
Go ahead, Nick.
No, I can certainly pull the restrictions that were done on that when there was a refinance on that property not too long ago, a few years ago. And so let me take a look at it, and I can certainly get back to you with the information as to whether it's got any year-round restrictions on it.
That would be super helpful. Thank you.
Brooke, I think you had a question.
I have more of a comment. I wanted to just frame the discussion around safe harbor a little differently for the public as a way of explaining the timing of our build out on the properties we've acquired. And I think it's hard for the community to understand. Dave had mentioned, heads and beds, and we want to move forward. And I want to hold a place in the conversation for the community to help the community understand that timing the development of these units on properties we've acquired is critical to our maintaining our safe harbor status with the resources we've been allocated thus far. So it may feel like we're waiting or we're taking too much time, but I want the community to understand that there's a reason for that timeline, because we need to have another 24, 48 units available to line up after this 2 years of safe harbor, which explains why the RFP process for those properties at Bartlett Road and Orange Street are happening now, because they will line us up the next set of units to stay in safe harbor as we approach the final 10%. And so I just think it's helpful for the community to understand that challenge that we face in terms of our development and build out timeline going forward. And obviously, the more resources we have available financially, the faster we can back units behind each other and get to the 10% as one of the first goals that was defined for us with the Neighborhood First, with that original $20 million of funding several years ago. So I just don't want the community to lose track of that piece of our complicated housing puzzle.
Thank you, Brooke. Penny?
Yeah, just quickly, perhaps through you to Tucker. If Tucker, could you just explain to everybody, once we reach the 10%, what happens?
Well, from a 40B requirement, we will have met that 10% mandate by the state. And in effect, we will be in a permanent state of safe harbor, at least until the following census information comes out and our 10% number is reset. So it was very good that we just were able to enter a new 2-year period, because we know that we will be receiving a new 10% requirement from the state in the April-May timeframe of this year. And I think given the timing of the pandemic and, coinciding in 2020 with the US Census, a lot more people living here in 2020 when the census was being taken than normally would be living here. It's likely that our requirement is going to go up somewhat materially, although I would definitely hesitate to take any guess what it might be. However, it's going to change. It's good that we're in safe harbor now. And once we get to the 10%, as far as the state requirement goes, we will have met the objective.
Thank you.
Thanks, Tucker. Thanks, Penny.
If I can just add, and this is really to Dave's point, and obviously a lot of our effort between now and town meeting will be around getting this type of information out there. But in terms of, heads in beds, we really have already facilitated, 32 households, getting into, there are heads in beds for 32 Nantucket households that we have helped facilitate. There will be another 22 households with heads in beds come the end of the second quarter regarding 31 Fairgrounds, if things stay according to plan. And so, that is no small accomplishment within a relatively short time frame. These monies were first approved in 2019. Then there was a pandemic. And if we look in comparison to some of the other projects that serve the year-round community around the island, Satcham's Path, a portion of Beach Plum Village, those were projects that took, in excess of 12 years, sort of from start to occupancy. So while we can't really move fast enough, I think it is important to note that we are moving forward in a steady and thoughtful manner.
Thank you, Tucker. Penny, I think you're all set, but your digital hand is up. You're good. Okay, you're good. All right, with that, we'll close the DHCD update on Safe Harbor. We'll jump down to, we moved 10, 11, and 12 to a future meeting, which we'll discuss in a minute. Item 13, 7-letter contract. So Tucker, I'm going to come to you on this.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. So this is, the board will recall last year, the board had supported the engagement of the 7-letter firm, a strategy and communications firm, on behalf of the effort to get housing bank legislation passed that would benefit Nantucket. And you'll also recall that the Nantucket Association of Real Estate Brokers, in addition to some individual brokers, stepped forward last year to cover, I believe it was 50% of the cost of this engagement. So obviously the housing bank did not get through the legislature last session. We are in a new session now with greater emphasis, I would say, across the state on the housing issue. Certainly, we have a new administration, and in their inauguration speech and in their appearances to date, the new governor and lieutenant governor are really putting housing as a cornerstone of their agenda, and in both public and private meetings have expressed support for transfer fee for housing. So the Vineyard is planning to re-up on its commitment to Seven Letter sister firm, which is O'Neill and Associates. They are a direct lobbying firm. The Vineyard engages them separate to what we have been involved with. The terms of the proposal for this coming year basically match the same cost as last year. It's $7,500 a month engagement. And we are here today to see what the board's pleasure might be with regard to re-engaging this firm. I don't know, whether the Nantucket Association of Real Estate Brokers would intend to be there in the same manner as last year. So I don't think that we can count on that. But I think this is in the scheme of what we're trying to accomplish with housing and talking about the kinds of monies that we just were discussing with the finance director and town manager. And the idea that more is more, as we talked about before, I think that this is a worthwhile investment. With that, back to you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Tucker. Penny, I saw you shift when Tucker mentioned the Nantucket Association of Real Estate Brokers.
Yeah, I don't want to speak for NAREB, but NAREB is in the process of facing a significant expense to provide factual data for the community regarding vacation rentals. So I don't know what NAREB will do. That's not very helpful, but that's the truth.
Thanks, Penny. Tucker, how long have we been at this with the housing bank bill? Is it 7 years?
We introduced our home rule petition in 2016.
Okay. And as a community, we continue to unanimously support it to send it back since 2016?
Unanimous. I mean, I think at the last town meeting, it was like 85% support.
Okay.
Yeah.
My only commentary on this is, I feel like whenever I hear about the housing bank bill and the hopes of it becoming a permanent financial resource, reoccurring resource for us, the idea excites me. But I do feel beaten down that it's 7 years and, we're kind of going on and on and on. With that said, to the point earlier, it's a $500 million problem, and we're going to keep needing to try every venue we can to fund this. And the real estate market is not going to slow down and wait.
So I appreciate those comments. So what I was going to add is that, and I am, as you all know, like I am driven to see this thing pass, but even if it didn't, I think this investment is a solid one from the standpoint of showing solidarity with the Vineyard and other Cape communities where there are a host of different housing issues that we collectively are really working together on. And so I think if for no other reason, it will pay back benefits that may be different than what the stated intent are.
Thank you, Tucker. Ken, some comments? Tucker, will you mute if you guys are in the same room?
No, I think there's one thing that is really, really different from before. We were a lone voice for a long time. And what's happened is you having some major communities now seeing that this is a answer that makes sense. And so I think that for the first time, you've got a governor and a lieutenant governor that has identified housing is critical, understands it. And I think for the second time, you've got enough people together, coming together on the same approach with parameters being the difference as opposed to the overall driver being the difference. And I think that's a huge difference, that this, for the first time, there's a realistic chance of this happening.
Thank you, Ken. Mr. Cassidy, you have your hand up. Brooke, I'll come back to you after.
Through you, Mr. Chair, I may have missed the amount that Tucker was referring to. Was there an amount mentioned, or was it the same as last year?
It's the same as last year, which equates to $7,500 a month for the period January through July.
Thank you, Tucker. Any follow-up on that, Mr. Cassidy?
Only that it seems small to walk away from the other communities, you know, in the midst of this. And I think, only speaking for myself, we should maybe make an effort to try and scrape up a couple of bucks from wherever is necessary and move forward. That's it. Thanks.
Thank you, Billy. Brooke, to you.
I absolutely agree. I mean, we've got this train on the tracks. Let's keep putting fuel in the engine. I don't want to quit now that we've got some momentum going. The conversation is out there. It's out there in the media. It's out there in the political landscape in a way that none of us saw 5 years ago. And so we planted a seed and it's growing into something significant. And I say we continue. I'm going to just mix up my metaphors. Now we're going to fertilize my tree. So.
Penny?
Yeah, I think there's an innate obligation, given that we started this, to finish it or get as close to that as we can.
Okay, so Tucker, today are you in a position to be looking for a motion on a dollar amount that we're looking to fund? I think you said yes, but you're on mute.
I said yes, and I'm grabbing my calculator.
Okay, we'll stand by.
So if the board would authorize, I think we had a provision for some expenses in there last year, but so if the board would authorize up to $57,500 for this purpose, that is what we're seeking.
Is there anyone willing to make a motion to support Brooke?
I would move that we allocate $57,500 for this communications outreach project and to sign the contract.
Second.
Okay, so there's a motion from Brooke, second from Dave. Any comments or question, Tucker?
Just a quick comment. So just to remind the board, the way this worked last year was that the trust actually granted the funds to the community foundation, and the contract was between the community foundation and this organization.
So moved.
And I'd just like to comment on that there, if we can find members of the community to additionally support the effort, they can make tax deductible donations to the community foundation focused on this effort individually. Okay. Now, if that were to happen, would that reduce the commitment of the trusts? $57,500?
I mean, I would say yes. I mean, again, I think we should phrase it as up to 57.5.
Okay.
Okay.
Great. Brooke?
You want me to start again?
Please.
I will amend my motion for the Affordable Housing Trust to allocate up to $57,500 to the Community Foundation for Nantucket to support the communications contract and for advocating.
With seven letter.
With 7 letter. Thank you.
Second again.
So Brooke's motion, Dave seconded. Any further discussion? Seeing none, I'm going to take a vote by roll call, but Vicky, I have one question for you. One of the board members works at the Community Foundation. Would that be considered a conflict and should they abstain from the vote?
Yes, I would recommend that. Yes.
Okay, great, thank you. So a vote by roll call, Penny Dye,
Aye.
Dave Iverson,
Aye.
Brooke Moore,
Aye.
Rima Sherry,
Aye.
Shanta Murphy,
Aye.
Brian Sullivan as an aye. And then Meg Browers, who is on works there, so she's abstaining from the vote. Okay, great, awesome. Thank you guys on that one. What's next? We a gift from Emily Stover. Tucker, you received the gift, but I think other members may want to comment. Can you?
Yeah, I'm hoping that Penny might comment in a moment. I just wanted to say that, we were very surprised and appreciative to have received this gift from the family fund in memory of Emily Stover. And again, I'll let Penny speak more specifically and meaningfully about Emily. But as just a practical matter, all gifts like this do need to be received by the select board, which I understand they typically do at their first meeting of the month. So they will formally accept this gift at their February meeting. And we're just so appreciative. It was included in the letter, but I will have Haley send around sort of in a easy, to copy and paste form the names and addresses for each of the family members on the board of this charitable entity, which gave the gift. And to the extent that individual trust members would like to send a note of thanks, obviously that would be wonderful. We certainly will be sending one out from the office. Penny, would you like to talk about?
Yeah, I'll just very quickly. I wanted to mention, many of you may have known Emily as Emily Avery. Stover is her maiden name. She was a local attorney here for many, many years. She passed away on September 21st, 2020, after a valiant 12-year battle against aggressive breast cancer. She was one of the original architects of the Covenant program, and in fact, drafted all the first legal documents for that. Tenacious, fun, full of life, and a great friend to Housing on Nantucket. So thank you.
Thank you, Penny. Thank you, Tucker. And thank you to the group that considered us to send on the gift. It's very generous. With that, we'll move to the housing newsletter, the second edition. Haley, I'll come to you.
Yeah, so this is just on there. The link is in the packet, just to let everyone know that the housing newsletter is out and to check it out and send it on to your friends. And that's it, I think, unless Tucker had anything he wanted to add.
Haley, I distributed in my company's newsletter this past week, so I'll get you an open rate so you know how
Sounds great.
many reads we got.
Yeah. Oh, just a note. I just saw Brian, your comment. Yes, I think that's a great idea that we have thank you notes. And then if people can come by, that would be awesome. Because I know Tucker wants to send one from our office, but if anybody wants to, either bring it to me and I'll mail it, happy to do that for the previous.
Thank you, Haley. Proposed meeting schedule. Review proposed meeting schedule for 2023 Affordable Housing Trust meetings. So I think we're looking at a special meeting in the immediate future to work through the 3 RFPs. So everybody's had a minute to review them. Orange Street was delivered last night. Penny, I see your hand up.
Just, is there any possibility folks could meet Monday next week? I mean, can we just set this up right now?
Yes, can we
Yeah.
set it up now? Yeah.
I'd prefer that. I'm out of pocket all day Tuesday.
So I can meet Monday, but my bigger question is, Vicky, can we have Bartlett Road by Friday?
I'm hoping to have Bartlett Road to you by the end of tomorrow.
Great.
Thursday morning at the latest. I apologize for not getting them to you. I just.
You
I
have a
was
lot on your
very
plate.
good intention, but the warrant took over. So, yeah,
Yeah.
I will definitely have something for you, Thursday morning at the latest. Okay.
And so my impression is that these RFPs are going to be near perfect with the opportunity for us to approve with some minor modifications if we see any. I think that's the goal of where we're at this stage.
Yes, and there are some comments right now that I had in the margins, questions perhaps for your consideration. So, but for the most part, I've gone through these and I have made the revisions that I think help and clarify things. So yes, I would hope that things should be better.
Just a point of information, based on the conversation we had earlier today with Brian and Libby, they wanted to have a look at that before they go out for us to make a decision on. And you need to remember that Libby is off this island Thursday and Friday. She's going to be totally unavailable. So there's a time crunch.
Right, there is, and I'm aware of the fact that they both want to look at these. And when I have revised them, I've kept them in mind to make sure that the formatting is in order. And hopefully there'll be a few corrections that they find need to be made.
Thank you, Vicky. So if we are posting a meeting, it has to go out on Thursday by the end of the day for a Monday. Is that correct, Haley?
Yes.
So I think the final check would be with Brian and Libby to make sure that they've confirmed the ability to get through them by the time we meet on Monday. So we're looking for a Monday time of what time? Okay, I got three hands. Rima, Brooke, Haley.
Okay, just me being a broken record, do we have any information on an as-built for Amelia from Lou?
No, we do not yet. Okay, I will nag again. I've asked repeatedly from the planning department and their surveyor. So I will, after I get off here, I'll send out another request.
Okay, great.
It is, it's really necessary, and I agree, it's really necessary.
Really
to have this
necessary.
Plan, because when I even look at it and, you know, I am very confused by what I'm looking.
Very confused. I
Yeah.
can't see 45 feet.
No,
So-
well, I can't even, I mean, there are setbacks and all kinds of other things.
Exactly.
Here, it's just too confusing.
Okay, good. Thanks.
Thank you, ladies. Brooke?
Is there a reason we're rushing to Monday? If Libby and Brian need to review this, can we look at later in the week instead?
Go ahead, Penny.
Yeah, my hope was to try and get it done as soon as we can. I just feel like it's taken a really long time, and then I'm not available Tuesday and possibly Wednesday. So it's person.
Okay. And let me come to Haley. Go ahead, Vicky.
I'm not available like Thursday afternoon and Friday. I'm traveling all day. So just in case you need me.
Okay. I think we do need Vicky, for sure.
Yeah.
So Haley?
I'm just gonna note on your question about posting, I need to post it 48 hours in advance, so it's actually not the end of the day Thursday. It would be like if we're meeting at 10 a.m. on Monday, it needs to be
Got it.
posted at 10 a.m. Thursday. So bearing that in mind.
So I'm kind of torn, Penny, while I want to adhere to your
Do
schedule.
it, go
I
ahead,
don't-
do it without me.
Yeah, I don't know if we should be working with Vicky's schedule, but adding an extra business day in for Monday and be looking at Tuesday or Wednesday
I'm
as a
completely
more
fine with
realistic
that.
date.
Yeah, Vicky trumps me in this for sure.
But I just want you to know, Penny, that I have looked at your comments, okay, and tried to consider them when
I can't help it.
Well,
Well,
I'd
no, I
like to,
appreciate it. I do. So
I'd like to have it and read them into the public record if you're not at the meeting. So I know that you'll review them and be able to share them. Is there,
I'm totally fine if you meet on Tuesday. And if I get out of my deposition early, I'll join you.
But or are we hearing so far that, like, for example, 9 a.m. next Thursday could work for everybody?
no, I think Vicky was traveling. I think she
Not
said.
not in the morning.
No, I'm available Thursday morning. I can't do Thursday afternoon or Friday,
Okay,
9 a.m. if you want.
I could actually make that if I move something, which I can move. Brian, can't you work out and go to a meeting at the same time?
no, it's not my workout. It's a different meeting after that. Okay, I'll be there.
So Thursday at 9?
Thursday at 9.
Okay.
Dave and Rima, is that good for you guys?
Dave says yes. Rima?
Yeah, I can do that.
I'll set up a Zoom and send it around to everyone.
So the goal is an 18-minute meeting. So come prepared. All right.
Thursday at 9, correct?
Yes, Thursday at 9.
Yeah.
So following that, do you want to discuss further meeting schedule? Or are we just sticking with our regularly scheduled, or are we increasing our amounts in this conversation now leading up to town meeting? Penny?
Yeah, we had talked about meeting bi-monthly or every 2 weeks leading up to town meeting.
I think it's important on Dave, my opinion is on at least on Dave's point about kind of marketing and the discussions out in general, regardless of the warrant articles, kind of the accomplishment and goals of the trust moving forward. So if we can focus on a marketing meeting the next go around.
So we'll include a list of proposed dates for the agenda for next Thursday that we can briefly talk about.
Great. Haley? Oh, sorry, Tucker.
Yes, page 74 of the packet that I sent out has the proposed meeting schedule to go with this agenda item.
Oh yeah, here it is. Okay.
This is meeting twice a month until town meeting as indicated.
Okay. Why don't we come back at the next meeting and identify the ones we know we can't make, just to make sure that we'll be able to have a quorum. Like, I know there's 2 dates on there that I can't make, but if we have a quorum, there's no reason not to do it. So, Meg?
Just wanted to throw out there, I mean, the dates are all fine, except the April date is during school break. So I don't know if that's a consideration or not.
April 4th?
Tucker? Yes, I think April 4th, she meant.
I was gonna say,
Sorry,
but-
it's the late April date, like the 19th or whatever.
18th.
Yeah.
18th.
So I was going to say, thanks, Haley, for pointing that out in the packet, and that perhaps, between now and next Thursday, folks could just simply let us know individually if there's a date or dates that don't work for you, and then we can assemble that matrix, if you will.
Awesome. Okay, great. Any other business? Penny? And then Brooke.
Okay, just very quickly, with my housing authority hat on, we are going to, I believe, have an open seat that is on the town ballot. This is an elected seat in April, so heads up.
Who is not returning?
I believe, and I don't want to say this 100%, that we have a representative who named Marvia Henderson, who ran 3 short years ago, and her term is up.
Does that seat come with commitments to other boards or roles?
That is such a good question. No, annually, we decide amongst ourselves who our rep will be to the CPC, NPDC, and Affordable Housing Trust.
Great. But there is opportunity to be accessing those other boards through.
Should one want to. Mhm.
Got it.
Yeah. Mhm.
Okay. Brooke, you had some other business?
Yeah, I just wanted to follow up on my commitment to bring our language about affordable and attainable housing proposal to the CPC. I met with them this morning and they were pleased that we will delay the decision so they have more time to contemplate it. They had some very good questions. And we committed to a continued conversation around the advantages or disadvantages, as you were, of amending their language to expand the scope of their funding up to 240% AMI. And you could comment, but I feel like we had some really good engagement from the commissioners and curiosity, and I'm hopeful that that they will come on board. And if they don't, and they decide to stay where they want to stay, then that's where we end up, I think. My impression is this board didn't want to move that forward without that commission's support. So that's what we're working toward together.
Yeah, and I think it was I was really surprised. We had 45-minute discussion on this item. It ended up being the last item on the agenda because of miscommunication with respect to timing, but it ended up allowing for a very, very in-depth discussion in terms of creating an understanding of why this is something appropriate. And I think the most important thing was the comment that Tim Savarino made at the end, said that it doesn't mean that we have to do it. It just means that we have the opportunity to do it, and we can exercise our judgment with respect to where, with respect to a particular issue, funding goes. And I think that statement gave a comfort level to my board to believe that this is something that should be given serious consideration to. And I think that you're going to get, certainly if this morning's conversation was any indication, a significant amount of willingness to work together to try and figure it out, to make it work. But unless you disagree, Brooke.
No, I agree. And I think it was helpful to explain that this gives them the latitude to fund up to 240, but they could always prescribe their funding to a subset of the range that is available to them. And so I think, the CPC correctly is interested in supporting their history has been, and their limitation has been, supporting the lower end of the AMI levels. And so this would allow them, the flexibility to do things at higher levels, but they could also prescribe funding for lower levels if they so, wanted to going forward. So it's really about increasing their flexibility.
Thanks, Brooke.
Mm-hmm.
Any more questions? Nope. Any other board members with comments for board comments? Seeing none, we'll close that, and I'll look for a motion to adjourn without executive session.
Move to adjourn.
And a second?
Second.
I think Meg got that one. Roll call. Penny Dye.
Aye.
Dave Iverson.
Aye.
You guys all just shifted. Brooke Moore.
Aye.
Rima Sherry.
Aye.
Meg Browers.
Aye.
Chantal Murphy.
Aye.
And that was a great meeting. Thank you, everyone. Really appreciate it. Brian Sullivan's and I.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.